So hey everyone, welcome to Small Farm Living. These videos are part of my DIY crafting videos that I am going to be doing, but if you are a regular subscriber or you view my channel all the time, I just want you to know that I'm still doing my regular content, so watch for that. So go ahead and grab yourself a cup of tea and let's get started. Now for craft number one, I found this really cute frame at the dollar store. And what I really liked about it was not only that it was still only $1.25, but it has this beaded edging. The size was perfect and it already had the distressing on there, which is just what I was looking for this craft. So I didn't have to really do any more work to the picture frame. I am going to open up the back because I'm going to take out the piece of plastic and then I'm going to take the paper and trace it around this piece of burlap. Now this red burlap I actually got from Joann Fabrics, which I am very sad is no longer in business, but I happened to hit a clearance sale, I mean perfect, which doesn't happen that often. And if you are a crafter and you hit that perfect clearance sale, you know how giddy you can be because these were like 75 or 80% off. And the day that I went, they had just put them down to that price and there was several, and I think I ended up like 6 of these because I thought, you know what? Red is not just for Christmas, it's also for Valentine's Day and for the 4th of July. So I stocked up on these, so I do still have quite a few left. But I'm sure you can find these elsewhere, I'm just not sure, I haven't seen them lately. But now that I have this piece all cut out, I just want to make sure that it does in fact match where I need to put it within the picture frame. And it does. So now these little ribbon roses, I got these off of Wish, and if any of you remember Wish before Temu kind of became the big thing, that's where these came from. And I did buy quite a lot when I got these, so that's why I still have a whole bunch left. And I'm going to take my little wire clippers. These are not the greatest pair, but I'm going to clip off as close to the back as I can, and then I'm going to fluff them out because just in shipping and in storage, the little ribbon roses sometimes get smushed. And then as soon as I did that, I am going to start hot gluing the bottom row, and we are making a Christmas tree. And I did lay out the roses just so I knew how many I would need to go from one edge to the other for the bottom row and then all the way up to form my Christmas tree. Now this is kind of awkward for me. It's kind of maybe hard to tell because it's always reversed in the video, but I am not left-handed. And where I am sitting at the table, the only plug-in that is close enough for me for the cord length of my glue gun, it makes me be left-handed. So I'm just learning to be very ambidextrous, I guess. So as soon as I get all of the bottom row glued on, and I will just tell you this, you have to be very careful about how much glue you put on and how hard you press down if you are gluing onto a surface like I am, which is a paper underneath, because the burlap obviously is porous and the glue goes through and makes your project stick to the paper. But I am just going to continue to glue on each one of these little ribbon roses until I form my tree shape. And I realized I had shorted myself the very top rose at the top. So I got another one cut and I got that glued on there. And then as I lift it up, you can see it sticking just a little bit, but I was very careful, so it was very minimal. And now we have our basic shape of our tree. And now I have corks. These are actually true corks, they're not the newer plastic ones that you find a lot. And I cut it in half so that I had a flat surface on the back. And the cute thing is this is Snoqualmie Vineyards, which is not too far from where I live in the Pacific Northwest. And I thought having the word snow on the base of the Christmas tree would be cute as well. And I did off of camera take some antiquing wax and just rub it over the top of the cork just to give it a little deeper color. And I am going to just rub some hot glue on here, trying to get it as thin as possible again so I don't have so much that it seeps through the back of the burlap. And I ended up putting a little bit more on here and then up at the very tip top so that when I tuck it up underneath that bottom rose, it glues itself to that as well. And there we have our little Christmas tree. So now what I'm going to do is just very gently now with the glue gun, because if you get too thick of a bead, it actually makes a lump. I am just very, very gently squeezing the trigger and putting on the thinnest layer of hot glue that I can. So I'm only doing the top section first because it dries out even faster than normal. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom section as well and get that pressed down. it's time to put this into our frame. And because the ribbon roses are going to actually protrude past the front of the picture, you kind of have to finagle it a little bit. And I was going to try and do it without the backing on, but it was just too wobbly and kept trying to fall out. So I went ahead and straightened it back out, and then I grabbed the back of the picture frame and I put it back on, and I only clipped in the top two pieces so that I still had some flexibility movement with the bottom. And then when I turned it back around, I was trying to figure out what I was going to use, and I ended up choosing just to open my scissors and very gently lift the edge of the rose up and over the side of the picture frame in the front. Of course, did that on both sides, and then it was just how I wanted it. So I turned it back over and I proceeded to close the little clips on the bottom of the picture frame. And this is what we ended up with. And I think it's super cute. You could embellish this even more if you wanted to with greens up in the corner, but I just kind of like the simplicity of it. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, if you don't mind, if you like this kind of content, I would love to have you subscribe. But what really helps as well is just hitting that thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm push my videos out to other people and is the best way for helping my channel grow. Now, craft number 2, I found these little fall containers. They almost look like a little to-go container for soup or something at the Dollar Tree. And I really love the burgundy color on this because it can be used for Christmas, and especially like a vintage tone Christmas. And I got this little cardstock paper off of Amazon. I will try to link that down below for you. And I wanted to remove some of the paper thickness on this just to make it easier to glue, since the surface of my container is more of a rounded shape. Now, if it was flat, I wouldn't worry about it so much. But I tried the paper method, just rubbing a piece of packing tape on the back and then pulling it off. And it did pull some off, but it was kind of tedious. So I ended up just taking my scissors and cutting out each individual scene that I wanted to put on my container and using the tape that way, which I'm going to admit was also kind of cumbersome because some of the pictures were not as wide as the tape, and so then the tape was sticking to the table, and I guess I could have shown that for some good laughs, but I was like, oh my word. So if you have a better way for removing layers of paper, and I did try just using my thumbnail on the edge and peeling it that way, and it didn't come off very well. So again, if you have a better way that works really good and is quick and easy, let me know down in the comments, because I am always up for suggestions on how to make crafting just a little bit easier. Now, the fun thing about this particular piece of paper is that most of the designs were really easy to cut out, almost in a square shape, but a few of them had pieces on there that I didn't really want, and so I had to cut some out with a little bit of shape to them, which was great. And I was trying there to determine if some of my pieces would fit perfectly over the pumpkins, and it just wouldn't, because I was okay with that creamy background if I could just cover up the pumpkins. But because I couldn't, I decided to try just like a bronzing paint, and I'm not sure of the color. I'll see if I can find that, but I put it on there and I just didn't like the bright bronziness that it was giving me. And so next to it, I have just a regular brown paint, and I decided that I would just mix the two together and see if I liked the results of that. So that's what I'm doing here, is mixing the two together. And once I got it on here, I did really like it. It toned the metalliciness down of the first paint and just gave it kind of a very nice Victorian, earthy toned look. And now I'm telling you, trying to craft with something round is not very easy. And I did see on someone else's channel, and I wish I could remember whose it was, but she had laid something round that she was working on a bag of popcorn and just kind of made a little divot in the bag so that this sat down there, like her round container sat down there without rolling around on the table. Of course, if you're painting all the way around, that's not going to work, but I was going to get a little Lazy Susan at the thrift store, and when I went back to get it, it was gone. So I'm on the hunt now for a little Lazy Susan, because I think that would make this a little bit easier as well. But as you can see, my first layer is not completely covering it. So as soon as I got done putting the coat one on here, I did grab my hair dryer and I gave it a quick little dry. And then I proceeded to put on a second layer. Now my original thought was if I could have a steady hand and paint this to where the kind of burgundy trim on the top and bottom was straight, then I would leave that burgundy trim. But as you can see, it just wasn't working. And I thought, you know what, the tediousness of it is just not worth it. So I am going to embellish that in a different way coming up here in just a little bit. But as soon as I got the second layer on, I decided that I would go back around and just touch up any that were still showing through, which wasn't much. 2 layers did great. So while that was drying, I took my lid, and because it's all burgundy, I like it and I'm not going to paint it, but I just cut out this little girl to make sure that she fit perfectly over those words. So now I'm just going to take my Mod Podge and I'm going to spread a thin layer over the section that it's going to sit on top of the container, and then I'm also going to paint, butter, whatever you want to call it, the back of the little decal that I'm going to put on there. And then as soon as I put those together, I am going to take my Mod Podge and I am going to put a thin layer back over the top of all of that. And I did take a little paper towel and wipe the excess glue off of the edges just so that there wasn't any like dried lumps or anything like that. So here I'm putting my thin layer of Mod Podge back over the top, and I'm just going very gently and very slowly because I don't want any wrinkling to happen on the top of my paper. And I did have just a tiny bit at one point, and I just used my finger to take the little air pocket out from underneath there, and it dried perfectly flat. So now here is my container all dried, and all I'm going to do is take my Mod Podge and I'm going to brush the back of the little picture that I want to put on. And just like I did on the lid, I am going to, once it's on, take some more Mod Podge and I'm going to paint over the top of that so I completely seal it in. Now as I'm putting these on, some of them I'm putting at a bit slight of an angle because I don't like everything being perfectly straight up and down. You can see my container rolling away. But just trying to make sure that I get every edge of each one of these pieces. And we're just going to work our way around the container. And this little Christmas tree, at first I was going to put him on an angle because I was doing that with almost everything else. But then I thought, well, with the Christmas tree, I kind of like the fact that he's just straight up and down. So we got him positioned just right. So he's looking like a straight Christmas tree. And then for the back where the seam was, this was just a little design that was on that paper. And I thought that I would just take that and cover up the seam. And I did with my thumbnail kind of mark down at the base there where the paper needed to end. And then I took my scissors and cut that off and proceeded to Mod Podge that on just like all the rest. And this one I was thinking about, but it was a little bit too big. That one worked a little bit better. It was still big, but I kind of liked it and I decided to overlap it onto the back a little bit. And then after I got this one all covered, I went around the entire container with the Mod Podge because I wanted to make sure, again, that every single edge of all of the little pieces that I put on there were covered. And just to kind of give it a uniform look. And it looks kind of streaky, but when it dried, it actually dried fairly nice. Now this ribbon I got at the dollar store. It's like a lace ribbon. I'm not sure if they still carry this. My Dollar Tree is not the greatest. It always looks like, half the store looks like they're going out of business and the other half looks like basically a warehouse. Everything's still in boxes and everybody's just rummaging through boxes because it takes them like 2 weeks to get boxes unpacked in our store. But I'm just gonna put on a very, very, very light skim of hot glue on this. Again, because I don't want any lumps, and also because the porousness of this ribbon, it would just come right through and you would see the ribbon, or you would see the glue on the front side of the ribbon, and I definitely don't want that. So just getting this put all the way around, and as I reach the end, I will just take my scissors and I will clip off the excess. And these are my Jot scissors from the dollar store, and they do not cut very well. I need to invest in a better pair of scissors, I guess. And I'm just gonna lightly tap that down so the glue doesn't come through. And now the lid is done. I think she looks super cute. And I wanted to test the lid to see what I thought. And I liked it, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the bottom as well. Now just a heads up, you can see up there under the lid, you can still see the burgundy and the paint line, and we are going to address that as well. So the bottom, basically the same thing as the top. We're just gonna make sure that it's nice and perfect, and then we're going to now take the lid back off because I am going to dress up the rim with the same lace ribbon. And at first I didn't know if it was gonna look okay with that much ribbon on it. But when I put the lid back on to test it, I found that because the lid hangs over the top of this container so much, you really don't have that much extra sticking out from underneath. So we went ahead and cut our piece of ribbon and proceeded to get that glued on to the top. And I think as you start getting this ribbon on here, and it's kind of a deep beige, or not a deep beige, but a very light beige color, it just really kind of ties right into that Victorian theme. And there we have our finished container. Let me know, do you like Victorian, old vintage type of things? I absolutely love it. I like all styles, but I think this and maybe lodgy type themes are my favorite. And as I was looking at this, I thought, you know what, I'm not done. I think I want to take a little bit of my gold ribbon buff and rub it around the top rim of the container. I just felt like there was, compared to everything else, there was way too much burgundy showing on the top of this container. So I just took my finger. Sometimes I'll use a paper towel, sometimes I just use my finger. And most of it does come off if you use like Dawn dish soap and wash your finger. But I did touch it up a little bit where it didn't quite get enough that I wanted. And then I thought, you know what, around that very little inner ring of the lid, I think I'm going to put some burlap. And so very, very carefully, I put a very thin bead as far back into that little divot as I could, because again, I don't want any hot glue to show after I get this put on. And I just worked my way around the whole top of the lid, repeating that process and only doing little sections at a time, because that's about the only way I could control how much hot glue I got on there. And then as I got to the end, of course, chopped it off, put a little dot in there, and I just pinched the two ends together so that it formed a full circle. And got hot glue on my finger in the process. But now we are finished. I figured this was about as far as we needed to go on this, and you could add a little gift tag to it if you want, but I just think she turned out darling. And I could just see giving this to somebody as a gift with maybe some chocolates in it, a little gift card, just kind of a fun variation on a gift box, or you could just use it in your decor for decorating. Either way. Let me know what you think of it. Now I just wanted to show you this. This is a round paper tissue container that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I did one last week in a video. I'll link that down below if you want to take a look at how I made it. But I found this chimney paper in my wrapping paper stack, and I thought I needed to do another one. So I just wanted to show you real quick how adorable this one turned out. So now we're going to move on to craft number 3. Now I'm just going to take this little cone. I got it at the dollar store, and these little gold stars I got at Hobby Lobby, and they're very bright gold, not my favorite, and they have little stickers on the back. So I am going to remove the little sticker on the back, and then I am going to take just a paper towel and wipe white paint on the toothpick so that I don't have to dirty up a paintbrush for this little tiny bit of a project. And then I'm going to take another piece of paper towel and my gold rub and buff, and I am going to put just the tiniest amount on there, and I'm going to rub it over the entire star, all over the front, and this is just toning it down. And then I'm making sure to do the edges as well, because you will see those. And then I am just going to take my chenille yarn that I got at Walmart, and I love this. I love it for trim work, and I thought this would make just a cute little yarn Christmas tree because it's so fluffy. So I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on my tree, or my tree form, I should say. Make sure that that's securely in place, and then because hot glue can melt your form, I am just very carefully doing small little portions and being careful to keep the glue gun off of the foam as I put the glue down. And I am just going to work my way around the entire tree in little sections. And as we get the first row wrapped around, what I'm going to do is take the hot glue and I'm going to dab a little bit to close off the first row and then loop it up over to go on to the second row. Now, if you wanted perfect circles around each row of the tree, you could cut your yarn each time you made your full loop around the form. But I kind of like the fact that it swirls up a little bit on one side. And probably, honestly, that'll be the back side of my tree anyway, so it won't matter. The only thing I had to be sure of when I was putting this on was that as I pulled the yarn, I needed to make sure that it wasn't twisted, because the natural twist of how they wind it up onto the yarn ball itself when you buy it, if you don't get it untwisted, it does look kind of funny on the tree form. So as I got to the top, I just wound that yarn all up and around to the very tippy top and to the base of the toothpick. Then cut it off and glued it down into place. And I was very gentle as I was going around gluing these to not smash the yarn. I wanted to keep it fluffy. Now this little container I have had forever and I love it. I just think it is the cutest. I love the green in the back of the white, and I don't want to glue anything into this because I maybe want to use this container for something else in the future. And I have kind of discovered over the years, because I love Christmas so much, I prefer not to have things that are big and bulky that are all glued down that I can't take apart, because when storage is an issue, like for me, I think I have more than 12 totes of Christmas things plus all my crafting stuff. If you have something that you can't really take apart, it makes it really hard to store. So these greens I got at Walmart, they were like $1.27 for this awesome pick, and it is just full. And I decided I was going to put the first one in without cutting it just to see the size of it and what I thought. And initially I was like, yeah, this is too big, but I'm going to wait until I get more in here and see what I think. But I did end up cutting it down just a little bit coming up in the video. Now this is where I decided I better put the back star on here just in case this thing gets turned around. So I glued the back on, and then I set it down inside here, and it fit just fine. It's not wobbly. And again, the greatest part is I'm not gluing it down. So when I take this apart to store it, I can gently wrap and store the top tree portion in one of my totes. And then all of the greenery, I can just stick back in a Ziploc bag and either recreate this next year or create something completely new. So I'm just going to continue to put the greenery all around the edges. And this is a eucalyptus that I got at Hobby Lobby in their fall section. And you can see it kind of has a rustic bronze color to it, which I really like because it breaks up the monotony of the Christmas greens. So I'm just going to deconstruct this one as well, and I'm going to start mixing some of these into the container. And I'm just kind of alternating back and forth as I go, putting some taller ones in the back. And I did take out that long one and cut it a little bit shorter so that it matches the rest. And then I got these little pine cones at the Dollar Tree a long time ago. I don't even know if they still sell them. Let me know if you know if they do. But these ones are kind of flocked, and then I have another bag that is just plain. But I'm just going to start tucking some of these here and there. And they're not the biggest pine cones in the world, so the ones that I put on this side and the back, they weren't showing up as much as I would have liked them to. But I did dig through the bag and I found a larger one that I'm going to put on the other side. And then I did find a little bit bigger of one and I swapped it out for the one on the left. And then this is where I decided to stop because I just wanted it to be very simple. And I think it's very pretty, very simple. And the best part is I can deconstruct it and it's not going to take up a lot of room to store when Christmas is over. So here's a wrap up of all the crafts that we did today. We have our pretty little ribbon rose Christmas tree, very simple. And again, that perfect picture frame from the Dollar Tree. Our little container with our yarn Christmas tree. Our little cute Victorian container, perfect for gift giving, or simply adorable just as a decor piece. And the bonus of the little additional tissue box that I made, which again, the video will be in the description. Thanks for watching.